This company was my mother's. You stole everything from her. Amanda's voice rang through my office as she barged in, her designer heels clacking sharply against the wooden floor. Behind her, a man in an expensive suit held a briefcase, radiating the stiff confidence of a corporate lawyer. I'm Isabella Martinez, 42 years old. Over the past 15 years, I've transformed Martinez Organics from a humble farmer's market stall into a multi-million-dollar organic beauty brand. And now, my sister is here, trying to take it all away. The lawyer cleared his throat and placed his briefcase on my desk with a measured air of authority. Mrs. Martinez, he began. We have proof that the original product formulations and concept for your company were created by Margaret Wilson, my client's mother. We're here to discuss returning ownership to its rightful heir. I lifted a hand, silencing him. Before you continue, you both need to see something. My voice remained calm, but my fingers trembled slightly as I reached for my laptop, 15 years of buried frustration threatening to surface. Amanda scoffed, flicking her perfectly styled hair back. What could you possibly show us? Mom told me everything before she passed last month. How you took her journal, how you exploited her generosity. Without a word, I turned the laptop screen toward them and pressed play. The grainy security footage flickered to life, showing a younger version of myself, sitting across from Margaret in this very office, back when it was just a cramped rental space. $5,000, my younger self said, sliding a business proposal across the desk. That's all I need. The farmer's market sales prove people love these products. Margaret barely glanced at the papers before pushing them back. Isabella, sweetheart, this is ridiculous. Real cosmetics require proper chemicals. Nobody's going to buy your little homemade creams. I watched as Amanda's smug expression faltered, but there was more. But these are your recipes, young me insisted. Don't you want to be part of something bigger? Margaret laughed, a sharp, dismissive sound. Those old formulas? They're just nonsense I picked up from my grandmother. If you want to waste your time, be my guest, but I want no involvement. The lawyer shifted uncomfortably as the video continued, showing Margaret signing a document. And this? My younger self asked. Margaret waved a hand. Yes, you have my permission to use those recipes. Frankly, I'd be embarrassed to be linked to them. I paused the video. Silence filled the room. The paper she signed, I said, is a legal waiver of any claim to the formulations or business concept, witnessed and notarized. Would you care to examine it? Amanda's face flushed deep red. She didn't mean. This is just the first piece of evidence, I interrupted, pulling out a thick folder. I have 15 years worth. Every instance of Margaret dismissing this business. Every time she told people she was ashamed of her stepdaughter playing with herbs instead of having a real career. That is, until last year, when we hit $50 million in revenue. The lawyer was already snapping his briefcase shut, sensing the inevitable, but I wasn't finished. You want irony, Amanda? I asked. 5 years ago, Margaret came to me, hoping to buy in. She offered $2 million for a 10% stake. I slid another document forward. I turned her down, but, of course, I recorded that conversation, too. Would you like to hear your mother suddenly claiming she always believed in my vision? Amanda's voice wavered. Why did you keep all of this? I leaned back, memories of those hard early years washing over me, the farmers' markets in the rain, mixing batches in my tiny apartment, delivering orders from my beat-up car, all while Margaret and Amanda lived in comfort, sneering at my efforts. Because your mother taught me an important lesson when she turned me down, I said. She taught me that the only person I could count on was myself, so I documented everything, knowing this day would come, the day someone would try to steal what they once called worthless. Amanda opened her mouth, but I cut her off. I suggest you leave before I send these videos to every business magazine dying to hear the real story of Martinez Organics. The lawyer practically pulled Amanda out of my office, leaving me alone with the weight of my own meticulous preparation. I picked up my phone to call my attorney. This wouldn't be the last time someone tried to claim what I had built, but I was ready. I'd always been ready. Margaret never understood that success isn't just about ideas, it's about having the resilience to believe in them when no one else does, and about keeping really good records. The next morning, the fallout was immediate. My social media notifications were in chaos. Amanda had gone on the offensive, spinning a carefully edited sob story that painted me as the villain who stole her mother's legacy. Your stepsister is quite the storyteller, my PR director, Sophia, said, dropping a stack of printed posts on my desk. She's riled up half your extended family. I skimmed the comments, Distant relatives I hadn't heard from in years were suddenly experts on my company's origins, spewing fabricated accounts of Margaret's lifelong dream of launching a beauty empire. Should we respond? Sophia asked, fingers poised over her tablet. Not yet, I said, unlocking my secure external drive. Let's see how far they want to push this. By noon, Amanda had escalated. She appeared on a local morning show, fake tears glistening, claiming that her mother's dying wish was to reclaim the business I had stolen. My phone buzzed, a text from my father. Isabella, be reasonable. Can't you give Amanda something? For family peace? I stared at the words, memories flashing through my mind. Family peace. That same phrase had been thrown at me every time Margaret or Amanda took something that was mine. I texted back, like when you asked me to give Amanda my college fund? Or when Margaret convinced you to sign over the house to her, for family peace? No reply. I pulled up the news station's contact form and submitted a legal notice. Within an hour, their legal team would receive an airtight file proving Amanda's claims were defamatory. Let them deal with the lawsuit threat. Miss Martinez, my assistant called from the doorway. You need to see something at the flagship store. I pulled up the security footage. Amanda and 3 relatives stood outside, holding protest signs, warning customers that Martinez Organics was built on stolen family secrets. I almost laughed. If they wanted a public battle, I'd give them one. I pressed my intercom. Sophia, remember that documentary crew that wanted to tell our company's story? Call them back. Tell them I'm ready. To share what? Exactly? Everything. 2 hours later, I sat across from a renowned documentary filmmaker, cameras rolling. Between us lay the evidence of my journey, the original farmer's market permit, my first handwritten formulas, photos from the early days. Let's start at the beginning, the filmmaker said. Tell us about the first Martinez Organics product. I reached for an old, worn journal, my birth mother's. She passed away when I was 12, but before she left, she taught me about the power of natural healing. When my father remarried 3 years later, I was hopeful. Margaret claimed to share my passion. She told me she had her grandmother's recipes, just as I had my mother's. Carefully, I flipped through the fragile pages. I had asked Margaret to teach me her recipes, hoping to blend them with my mother's knowledge, but she had only laughed, dismissing them as useless. She signed them over to me without a second thought, convinced I was wasting my time. The very first product? A healing salve, my mother's Ito formula combined with Margaret's grandmother's calendula infusion. I refined it, tested it, collaborated with herbalists to perfect it. Every step was documented, every improvement carefully recorded. I smiled at the memory of those long nights spent mixing and adjusting, unaware back then that I was crafting what would become our best-selling product. The interviewer leaned forward. Your stepsister claims your success is built on her family's heritage. Her family's heritage? I repeated. The same heritage they discarded? I shook my head. I have years of footage of Margaret mocking these recipes, calling them outdated nonsense. But I saw their value. I honored that knowledge, evolved it, and turned it into something extraordinary. The interview stretched on for hours. I laid everything bare, the rejections, the struggles, the slow, relentless climb from farmers' markets to flagship stores, and, most importantly, the rock-solid documentation proving every milestone was mine, every innovation was earned. As the crew packed up, my phone buzzed. A message from Amanda. You think you're so clever with your proof and your records, but what about the family? What about Mom's memory? I thought about Margaret, about how she had tried to buy into my company once it found success, how, when the media started paying attention, she suddenly claimed pride in the business, how she never once acknowledged the years she spent ridiculing me. I typed back, Margaret's memory is preserved perfectly in the videos I kept. Would you like me to share them publicly? Let everyone see the truth? The response came fast, you wouldn't dare. But she knew I would, just as I had dared to believe in myself when no one else did, just as I had dared to build something from nothing, ensuring every step was protected. Minutes later, another notification appeared, this time from the station's legal team. They were pulling Amanda's interview and issuing a retraction. The evidence I had sent was too compelling to ignore. Outside my office window, the protesters still held their signs, shouting about stolen legacies. They had no idea what legacy truly meant. It wasn't just ink on old pages. It was vision, determination, and the willingness to document everything when no one believed in you. Ironically, that last lesson? Margaret had taught me that, just not in the way she intended. Sometimes, the best lessons come from those who show you exactly what not to do. 3 weeks later, The documentary aired. I watched it alone. A cup of herbal tea cooling beside me, a blend based on my mother's original recipe. The filmmakers had done an incredible job. They contrasted my humble beginnings at farmers markets with the empire Martinez Organics had become. But the most powerful moments came from the old security footage. A clip from a decade ago, Margaret scoffing. I can't believe she's still wasting her time. 7 years ago, natural beauty products? Please, when will Isabella grow up and get a real job? And finally, just 2 years ago, her sitting across from me with a forced smile. Darling, I always knew you had potential. Let's make this a true family business. The credits rolled, and my phone buzzed relentlessly. Amanda's text came first. You've destroyed Mom's reputation. I hope you're happy. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened another message, this one from my father. Isabella, I watched the documentary. I don't know what to say except I'm sorry. I should have supported you. I should have seen what Margaret was doing. Can we talk? Before I could type a response, my assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. Miss Martinez, your stepmother's sister is here. She insists on speaking with you. I hesitated, then, curiosity won. Send her in. Aunt Helen entered, looking older than I remembered, her expression somber. In her hands, she held an old, leather-bound book. I found this while going through Margaret's things, she said, setting it on my desk. It's our grandmother's original recipe book, the one Margaret claimed you stole. I carefully opened it. The pages were filled with handwritten notes, detailing herbal remedies and beauty formulas, but what caught my eye were the scribbles in the margins, written in a different hand. Those are Margaret's notes, Helen explained. From before she married your father, she tried for years to make these recipes work. She wanted to start a business, but she failed. She couldn't figure out how to modernize them, how to make them marketable. The realization hit me. That's why she resented me so much. Helen nodded. When she saw you succeeding where she had failed, well, you know how my sister was. But after watching the documentary, I wanted you to know, our grandmother would have been proud of what you built. After she left, I sat for a long time, staring at the book. Then, I picked up my phone and messaged Amanda. The flagship store has a beautiful display case in the entrance. I'd like to place your great-grandmother's original recipe book there, with a plaque honoring her contribution to natural beauty traditions. Not because you demanded it, but because it's the right thing to do. Her legacy lives on in every product we create, alongside my mother's recipes, my innovations, and 15 years of hard work. I hit send, then wrote to my father. Coffee next week? Just us. Amanda's response came first, I'll think about it. Then Dad's, name the time and place. A week later, the display was installed. The old book lay open to the page on calendula infusion, the same one I had used in my first product. Beside it sat my mother's journal, turned to her Ito formula. Above them, a simple plaque read, honoring the wisdom of those who came before, while forging new paths forward. That evening, as I was locking up, I noticed an envelope on my desk. Inside was a letter from Margaret, written just before her death. Isabella, by now, Amanda will have made her move to take the business. I put her up to it, my final act of bitterness. But the truth is, you succeeded where I failed. You took those old recipes and turned them into something extraordinary. I was too proud to admit it in life, but I can at least put it in writing now. The business is yours. You earned it, Margaret. I tucked the letter into my files, not because I needed it, but because it was proof of something I had always known. The truth had prevailed, and no amount of resentment could undo what I had built. As I turned off the office lights, my reflection shimmered in the window. The city stretched out before me, vibrant and full of possibility. Somewhere out there, my mother was smiling. Because real legacy isn't just about old formulas, it's about believing in something when no one else does. It's about proving its worth. And making sure you document everything, just in case. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Stay tuned.